بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Let's move forward to Hadith number 73. Hadith number 73. Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar, may Allah have mercy upon him, states, وعن معاوية قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم العين وكاه السهم فإذا نامت العينان استطلق الوكاء. رواه أحمد والطبراني وزاد ومن نام فليتوضأ. طيب, Hadith number 73. And there's more to the hadith before we move forward. It states, وهذه الزيادة في هذا الحديث عند أبي داود من حديث علي دون قوله استطرق الوكاء وفي كلا الإسنادين ضعف. ولأبي داود أيضا عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما مرفوعا إنما الوضوء على من نام مضطجعا وفي إسناده ضعف أيضا. So hadith number 73, and there's a bit of a discrepancy here between the version that I'm reading from, which is Subul as-Salam, the classic commentary, and the English translation here by Darus Salam. The Darus Salam version, obviously we mentioned before, and this is very common in different books of hadith, you find differing in numbers, the numbering. One version is a little different from another, give or take by a few hadiths, whereas the editor, let alone in English, the translators, so on and so forth, they'll differ on, is this a separate hadith or is it a part of the previous hadith? And if it is or isn't, does it deserve an individual numbering? And obviously the people of hadith, if a hadith is reported by a different companion, even if it's exact in wording, it's a different hadith. Rather, they would consider a hadith reported by the same sahabi with different chains of report, different turuq and asanid, as different hadiths. All right. What's important is the numbering system is a little different, not a large deal, a great deal different. But here, hadith number 73 versus English and Arabic. English being behind, Arabic being ahead. And hadith number 74 in the English version of Dar es-Salam, there is a hadith which is totally ahead of its time versus the Arabic version. So it says hadith number 74 is narrated by Anas concerning the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam receiving hijama, offering prayers, and not performing wudu. That hadith doesn't come until several hadiths later here in my Arabic version. All right. And very interestingly enough, here in this Arabic version, the hadith Anas is mentioned later without any numbering. Okay, so that's very interesting. 74 is the addition of Abdullah ibn Abbas, the addition of Abi Dawood of the previous hadith of Muawiyah. And then it has Anas's narration concerning the hijama with no number. no number whatsoever. Then it goes right into 75. So there's something wrong with that print. That's a mistake, and Allahu Alam, it seems to be a mistake here in this version, here in Arabic, whereas there's no number for that hadith whatsoever. But regardless of the number, the hadith of Anas isn't mentioned before the narration of Muawiyah. All right? So inshallah ta'ala, just be a little patient as we try to work our way and simplify these small discrepancies and these different things like this. All right? Wallahu alam. So we're going to stick with our numbering system and our order. And that would mean that hadith number 75 in the English translation is 73 in my version. Okay. Hadith states, narrated Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the eye is the string of the anus, and if the two eyes sleep, the string is untied. العين وكاء السه فإذا نامت العينان استطرق الوكاء رواه أحمد والطبراني. And this is reported by Ahmed and Al-Tabarani, who added, whoever sleeps should perform ablution. Also reported by Abu Dawood, mentioning the above addition without the words, the string is untied. Both versions are weak. And Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma narrated in a marfu', traceable hadith, that ablution is necessary for one who sleeps while he is lying flat. Reported by Abu Dawood, and there is weakness in his chain of narrators. Okay. So the narration, the main narration here in the book is the report of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu arda, that says, Al-Ainu wika as-sah فإذا نامت العينان استطلق الوكاء. They said that the eye, meaning the eyes, wika as-sahi, it is the drawstring of the sah, of one's anus. Once again, as we've stated in many lectures and classes, if you lack the necessary maturity, please don't listen to this class or this lecture or this series. If you lack the necessary maturity, we explained many times before, we went over the hadith regarding the wudu being broken by touching one's private part, wudu being broken by a man touching his penis. And these words and these terms of the physical anatomy is basic anatomy, basic terms of anatomy, nothing extraordinary, okay? So this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ is quoted to say that the eyes are the drawstring of the anus. When the eyes sleep, the drawstring is let loose, i.e., control of passing wind. Having control over passing wind is based off of consciousness, based off of a person being awake. When a person is no longer awake, they lose consciousness, they lose control over their faculties concerning passing wind. Clear? So when you sleep, you automatically pass wind, basically. Or a person will pass wind without realizing that he is past wind. All right, that's what's meant by this hadith. The eyes are the drawstring of the anus. The Prophet ﷺ is quoted in this hadith. He would have said that is making an example, a similitude, a likeness of control over one's faculties, like a bag with a drawstring being tightly closed or being loosely opened. So when a person sleeps, He's broken his wudu. Clear, inshallah. All right. So the different versions of this hadith as we've just read. First is reported by Muawiyah, and then we have the narration of Ali. And also the narration of Abdullah bin Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma. And in brief, as the author is telling us here, is that there's weakness in all of these reports. None of these reports are solid. None of these reports are individually sound. Can they be sound collectively? Some scholars and researchers say yes, and others say no. They remain weak. One thing that we can all agree upon is that all of these hadiths are individually weak. None of them are solid. The question remains, hence the difference, can they be collectively sound? That is the fork in the road. Okay, so that's the main fiqh lesson from the hadith with all of its variations and additions. Sleeping breaks wudu itself. And if sleeping doesn't break your wudu itself, then it is, in most cases, the wudu will be broken. Madhinnatul hadith. So some scholars say that sleep itself is hadith. Sleep in itself is a nullification of wudu. And others that say it doesn't break the wudu, but instead it opens up the door for the wudu to be broken. Whereas when a person sleeps, it's a large chance or high ratio, a big possibility of him touching his private part and or passing wind without realizing it because he's asleep. Tight, clear. All right. So that's the main lesson from the hadith. San'ani, rahimahullah, he then goes on to speak on the narrator, Muawiyah, radiyallahu anhu. He states, هو معاوية ابن أبي سفيان صخر ابن حرب هو وأبوه من مسلمة الفتح ومن المؤلفة قلوبهم والله عمر الشام بعد موت يزيد بن أبي سفيان ولم يزل بها متواليا 40 سنة إلى أن مات سنة 60 في شهر رجب بدمشق وله 78 سنة. He starts off by saying he is Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, and Abu Sufyan's name was Sakhar ibn Harb. Both him and his father accepted Islam after the conquest of Mecca, and from those whose hearts were drawn close to Islam, those who were close to accepting Islam. And the Prophet ﷺ was ordered and commanded to be kind to them and to offer them incentives for them to take the leap, to take the jump, to accept the faith. Umar radiallahu anhu put him in charge of Sham, of Syria, after the death of Yazid ibn Abi Sufyan. And he was وَلَمْ يَزَلْ بِهَا مُتَوَلِّيًا. He was in charge of Sham until he passed. 40 years he was there until he died in the year 60 in the month of Rajab. He died in the month of Rajab in Damascus, and he was 78 years old. And very interesting here, San'ani, he doesn't say radiyallahu anhu. Very interesting here, San'ani, he just mentions, what he was in charge of in Syria. Omar put him in charge and that's it. Now, we're not saying nothing negative about the commentator, San'ani, but we said that it's very interesting. And you would think that Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, what's well-known accolades, some of them would have been mentioned here in brief. Whether you this or that, you cannot reject and deny. You cannot just ignore the accolades of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. And obviously, it's not an Aqidah class, nor is it here to talk and to discuss San'ani's Aqidah, whether issues that he had with Shiism or with light Shiism, diet Shiism, Zaydiyah. I'm not here to talk about that right now. But Ali radiallahu anhu, Ali's name is mentioned with alayhi salam. Alayhi salam. Alayhi salam. And Muawiyah is no radiallahu anhu whatsoever. And it's just, he accepted Islam this year. Him and his father accepted Islam at that time. He was in charge of it, and that's it. Khalas. Alright. Now, we're commanded to have good thoughts of Muslims, let alone scholars. But at the same time, the truth is the truth and a spade is a spade. Alright? At the end of the day, many people, they go astray concerning Muawiyah. Just like many people go astray concerning Ali. And there are reports that are, mentioned about Ali saying, يَهْلِكُ فِيَ رَجُلَانِ 2 men will be destroyed concerning me. There are those who will go extreme concerning me. And then there are those who are obviously extreme on both in love and in hatred. Those who will hate me to death and those who will love me to death. And they'll both be astray. Okay? So, first and foremost is Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, let's set the record straight. Muawiyah is a Sahabi. He is companion. If it's proven that he's companion, we're talking about the Aqidah of the Sunni Aqidah, not the Shia Aqidah. That's a total different discussion, total different religion. We're talking about the Sunni Aqidah. There's nothing to talk about. End of discussion. He met the Prophet as a believer. He died as a believer. Close the book. There's nothing that's to be said about this man or this woman, this individual. There's no criticism. There's no malice or hard feelings. Sahabi, khalas. The narrations clearly tell us when my companions are mentioned, fa'amsiku, hold back. It's nothing to discuss. May Allah Azza wa Jal be pleased with him. Any mistakes or shortcomings or faults or beef that the companions had with each other or wars, may Allah forgive them all. They're in Jannah. End of discussion. Khalas. That doesn't mean that they were perfect and exempt from mistake and error individually. Doesn't mean that. But they're Sahaba. So how you talk about any companion, be mindful. And know that the shaitan is going to get you to slip. So you can't just mention Muawiyah's name like some average Joe Blow in the street, and then that's it. Let alone you cannot say anything negative and derogatory and nasty about him. Why? Because he was a Sahabi. End of discussion. End of discussion. Regardless of the dynasty, the Umayyad dynasty, his children, his grandchildren, this and that, Sahabi. And if you speak ill of Muawiyah radiallahu anhu or any other Sahabi, no doubt you have left the realm of the Sunnah. The Aqidah of Ahl-Sunnah and the Madhab of Ahl-Sunnah is clear concerning the Sahaba. What things they did, what wars they fought, what things may have been said. This companion said about this one and so on and so forth. May Allah forgive them. May Allah have mercy upon them. They're done. It's over. They have come, they have gone. Tilka ummatun qad khalat. You speaking recklessly, you speaking irresponsibly, disrespecting the Sahaba is going to lead you to the hellfire. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, what are some of the virtues of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan? Was he just someone who met the Prophet once and that was it? A Bedouin, nomad, and that's it? Or did he have interaction with the Prophet ﷺ? Did the Prophet ﷺ entrust him with missions and things to do? Did he write down the revelation? What happened? And what happened after the Prophet ﷺ? As is mentioned, Umar put him in charge. So if a person is slandering and attacking Muawiyah, he's indirectly doing what? No doubt. You have to attack Umar's leadership. Thirdly, what feats did Muawiyah and his offspring accomplish? Historically speaking, whether you like him or not, Shi'i, Sunni, whatever the case may be, you cannot deny how Islam spread through the Umayyad dynasty. Islam spread, and there were great conquests, futuhat, great conquests during the time of that dynasty. And that dynasty was the precursor, and they were the predecessors to the great dynasty of the Abbasids and the Islamic Golden Age. All right, so let's not forget that now. Now, we talk about North Africa, and we talk about Spain and Portugal, right? Very interesting. When and how did that happen? How did Islam spread? And we talk about the Islamic conquests going the other direction, towards the east and Central Asia. And it is, all right, okay, cannot forget that now. Let alone the fact that how many Muslims today look at the great feats of the Ottomans, and of course, one may say the crown jewel of the Ottoman conquests was Constantinople, 1453. Mehmed or Muhammad al-Fatih. Well, one of the closest times that the Muslims came to conquering Constantinople, they were just almost there, was during whose dynasty? Was during what reign? Right? So, and the list goes on and on and on, and different things that were done in the Umayyad dynasty, the navy, all different types of evolutions and advancements, right, that took place during this dynasty that was founded and established by who? Radiallahu anhu wa arda. طيب. And we've explained the position of Ahl Sunnah wal Hadith and the Salaf al-Salih concerning the Sahaba. What is our position? What do we say? What do we believe concerning the Sahaba? Radiallahu anhum wa ardahum. Okay. Khairan inshaAllah ta'ala. Some of these different issues concerning sleeping, breaking the wudu or not, we spoke on before. Sanani, he says, والحديثان يدلان على أن النوم ليس بناقض بنفسه وإنما هو مظنة النقض فهما من أدلة القائلين بذلك ودليل على أنه لا ينقض النوم إلا المستغرق وتقدم الكلام في ذلك وكان الأولى بحسن ترتيب أن يذكر المصنف هذا الحديث عقب حديث أنس في أول باب النواقض كما لا يخفى. Reiterating those points that both of these hadiths prove that sleep doesn't break wudu, but sleep is the gateway to the wudu being broken. That's a proof and evidence for those scholars who hold that view. And all of that we've explained, we've previously mentioned. He says that this hadith obviously should have come earlier on. It should have been mentioned earlier in that chapter. It would have been, better, sweeter. Husn tartib for the, the author, he should have put it in earlier in the chapter, speaking on those hadiths. And that's clear. He says, كما لا يخفى. والله أعلم. All right. إنما الوضوء على من نام مضطجعا. Wudu is only obligatory upon those who sleep lying flat. Also, that is inauthentic. That's not a sound version. And the argument that the sleep that's broken, the wudu that's broken, is the wudu that comes from deep sleep, and not a light nap, let alone sitting, standing. We mentioned all of that. What do the scholars say concerning sleeping and wudu being broken? All right, that's done. All right, khairan inshallah. Let's move forward. So, hadith number 74, Ibn Abbas. And then we have the hadith of Anas, which doesn't have a number here in this version of Subul as-Salam. Back to the Dar as-Salam translation. That is the 74th hadith. So, in our version, technically speaking, this would be, like hadith number 75, but it isn't. So we'll just leave it anonymous for now. When we number it. Wallahu alam. All right. The hadith states, وعن أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم احتجم وصلى ولم يتوضأ. Narrated Anas bin Malik, the Prophet ﷺ had blood extracted from his body and offered the prayer and did not perform a new ablution. He did not perform ablution. أخرجه الدارقطني ولينه. Is reported by Ad-Daraqutni, who graded it weak. طيب. Hadith is weak and is not sound. It isn't sound. The main lesson from the hadith is clear, and that is hijama does not break wudu. And the main lesson from the hadith as well is that blood leaving the body does not break wudu. Blood that doesn't leave from one's private parts doesn't break wudu. Blood which isn't menstruation doesn't break wudu. That's the main lesson to be taken from this hadith. Sanani says, وَالْحَدِيثُ دَلِيلٌ ومقرر للأصل على أن خروج الدم من البدن غير الفرجين لا ينقض الوضوء وفي الباب أحاديث تفيد عدم نقضه عن ابن عمر وابن عباس وابن أبي أوفى وقد اختلف العلماء في ذلك. Alright, the scholars, they differ on this. Does bleeding break wudu or not? Alright? فالهادوية على أنه ناقض بشرط أن يكون سائلا يقطر أو يكون قدر الشعيرة يسيل في وقت واحد من موضع واحد إلى ما يمكن تطهيره. وقال زيد بن علي والشافعي ومالك والناصر وجماعة من الصحابة والتابعين إن خروج الدم من البدن من غير السبيلين ليس بناقض لحديث أنس هذا وما أيده من الآثار عما ذكرناه ولقوله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا وضوء إلا من صوت أو ريح. أخرجه أحمد والترمذي وصححه وأحمد والطبراني بلفظ لا وضوء إلا من ريح أو سماع ولأن الأصل عدم النقض حتى يقوم ما يرفع الأصل ولم يقم دليل على ذلك. طيب. He says the scholars, they've differed on this issue. Some say that bleeding breaks wudu. Others say it doesn't break wudu. Now, the blood that does not break the wudu, for those scholars who hold that view, is the blood, as we said, that doesn't come from one's genitals. That's a further discussion. Anything, as we explained, anything that comes from one of the two private areas, front or back, breaks wudu. So right now the discussion is pertaining to a paper cut. The discussion is pertaining to an open wound. The discussion is pertaining to somebody stabbed you and you continue to make the salah, right? Or you were stabbed before and then the wound is bleeding. Or a person had a scab, a mosquito bite, right? On his arm, on his leg is really, really itching, and you scratched it. And next thing you know, you ripped the scab off by accident and you have blood. And or nosebleed, as we explained before. Does that break the salah? Does that break the wudu or not? All right. So therefore, this hadith proves that it doesn't. There are those who say that it does. That's an argument. Sanani, may Allah have mercy upon him, he says that there are different athar from the Sahaba that prove that many of them continued to pray, and they did not hold the belief that their wudu was broken when they had bled from a wound. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. If a person bleeds, it doesn't necessarily mean that the wudu was broken. If a person wants to be safe and perform wudu, tayyib. Of course, there's a hygienic discussion with regards to bleeding, especially if it's a lot of blood while you're in the prayer, in the masjid, so on and so forth. Obviously, back in the day, HIV and AIDS wasn't like, how it is now. Allahu Alam, if it existed, maybe it did. I don't know. Can we know? Allahu Alam. But for sure, we know that it wasn't like how it was now. It didn't exist in the manner in which it exists now as a threat. So the concept of seeing blood, a person bleeding in the masjid, hygiene, right? That's, something to be mindful of. But the fiqh ruling is a different discussion. We'll stop here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best, and with him is all success.